The morning my father forgot my graduation day, New York felt louder than usual. Sirens screamed down Lexington Avenue. Steam curled from subway grates like the city was exhaling secrets. Yellow cabs honked in impatient rhythm. Somewhere below my apartment window, a street vendor shouted, "Fresh bagels," like it was the most important announcement in the world. But in my world, there was only silence. I stood in front of the mirror wearing a navy blue graduation dress, the fabric clinging just right, the cap balanced carefully over the curls I had spent an hour taming. Today was supposed to be my day. For years of late-night studying, 2 part-time jobs, internships that paid in experience, not dollars. I had clawed my way to this moment. My phone buzzed. I smiled, thinking he remembers. It was a picture. Not of me. Of my younger brother, Daniel. Standing in front of a brand-new silver BMW, bow on the hood, my father's hand resting proudly on his shoulder. Caption: for my college champ. You earned it. I stared at the timestamp. 9:12 a.m. My graduation ceremony started at 10. There was no message for me. No good luck. No proud of you. Nothing. Just the roar of New York outside and the quiet shattering of something inside my chest. Growing up in Queens meant learning early that nothing comes easy. Our apartment overlooked a laundromat and a bodega that never closed. Winters were brutal, summers sticky and loud. Dad always said, "This city doesn't owe you anything. You take what you earn." I believed him. That's why I worked harder than anyone I knew. But Daniel? He was different. 2 years younger, charming, effortlessly funny. Teachers adored him. Girls followed him like he was a walking rom-com. Dad saw himself in Daniel, the athlete, the smooth talker. Me. I was the quiet one, the responsible one, the backup plan. When Mom passed away during my senior year of high school, something in our house shifted. Dad buried himself in work, construction management, long hours, calloused hands, short temper. Daniel escaped into sports and friends. And I became invisible. At the ceremony, folding chairs stretched across the college lawn like an ocean of identical futures. Families held balloons and flowers. Parents cried. Phones recorded every step. I kept scanning the crowd. Maybe he's late. Traffic on the BQE is hell. My best friend Chloe squeezed my hand. He's coming, right? Yeah, I lied. They called my name. Ana Martinez, Bachelor of Business Administration, magna cum laude. Applause washed over me. I walked across the stage, shook the dean's hand, smiled for the camera. I imagined Dad in the audience, chest puffed, clapping harder than anyone. But when I looked into the crowd, there was an empty blue seat. And beside it, a little girl holding a sign that said, "Go Big Brother." I swallowed the lump in my throat and kept smiling. Because cameras don't capture heartbreak. By the time I reached home, the sky had turned that soft orange New York gets just before sunset. I unlocked the apartment door and heard laughter. Daniel's laughter. Dad's laughter. The smell of takeout filled the air. Chinese from our favorite spot on Roosevelt Avenue. "Hey!" Daniel shouted. "Graduate girl's home." Dad looked up briefly. "Oh, you're back." That was it. I placed my cap on the kitchen counter. "Yeah." Ceremony ended at 1. Good, he said, barely glancing at me. "Did you see the car outside?" I blinked. "The BMW?" Daniel grinned like he'd won the lottery. "Dad surprised me. For Columbia, can you believe it? Columbia. An Ivy League acceptance. Partial scholarship." Dad beamed. "My son's going places." "My son." I forced a smile. "That's great, Danny." Dad finally looked at me properly. "Your ceremony was today, right?" The question hit harder than if he'd yelled. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Today." He paused. "Ah, damn. I had a meeting with the dealership." "A meeting? For a car?" "For Daniel's future," he added, like that made it noble. I waited for him to say, "I'm sorry. I'm proud of you." He didn't. Instead, he handed Daniel an envelope. "And here's your spending money for the first semester." I felt heat rise to my face. "Dad, I graduated top of my class." "That's good, Anna." "Really," he said distractedly. "But business degrees are common. You'll find something. Common. For years reduced to common." Daniel shifted awkwardly. "Dad, maybe." "It's fine." I cut him off. I didn't want pity. Dad stood, grabbed his keys. "We're taking the car for a spin. Want to come?" He didn't mean it. "I'm tired," I said. They left, laughter echoing down the hallway. The apartment door clicked shut. And for the first time in my life, I let myself cry. 2 weeks passed. Daniel prepared for college with brand new luggage, designer sneakers, and endless pep talks from Dad. Meanwhile, I sent out resumes. Marketing firms. Startups in Manhattan. Corporate offices downtown. I rode the subway in stiff heels, clutching a leather folder I bought on clearance. Rejections piled up. Overqualified. Underexperienced. We've chosen another candidate. One afternoon, after yet another interview in Midtown, I sat on the subway platform watching trains blur by. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Hello. Hi, is this Ana Martinez? Yes. This is Rebecca from Sterling and Rowe Consulting. We reviewed your application again. Our CEO would like to meet you personally tomorrow morning. My heart skipped. Sterling and Rowe was elite. High-profile clients. 6-figure salaries. Me? Personally? Yes. 9 a.m. Don't be late. The call ended. I stared at my reflection in the dark subway window. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was my moment. When I got home and told Dad, he barely reacted. Consulting, he muttered. Sounds unstable. You should think about something safe. Government job, maybe. Daniel high-fived me, though. That's huge, Anna. I smiled at him, but inside something hardened. If I got this job, I wouldn't just prove myself. I'd leave. The next morning, Manhattan glittered under clear blue skies. Glass skyscrapers reflected sunlight like mirrors to another universe. Sterling and Rowe's office occupied the top floors of a towering building near Bryant Park. Marble lobby. Polished brass. The kind of place where ambition smelled like expensive perfume. I stepped into the elevator, heart pounding. When the doors opened, a woman in a sleek black suit greeted me. Mr. Sterling will see you now. Mr. Sterling. The CEO himself. I entered a spacious corner office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Empire State Building. A man in his early 50s stood by the window. Sharp suit. Silver at his temples. Calm, assessing eyes. He turned and smiled slightly. Ana Martinez, he said. I've been looking forward to meeting you. There was something about the way he said it. Like this wasn't coincidence. Like this wasn't random. He gestured for me to sit. I've been following your academic career, he continued. My stomach dropped. Following? I whispered. He folded his hands. Let's just say your father and I have history. The room felt suddenly smaller. What kind of history? He studied me carefully. The kind that could change everything you think you know about your family. And just like that, my graduation day stopped being the worst shock of my life. Because I was about to learn the truth. The word history echoed in my head long after he said it. Outside the window, Manhattan moved as usual. Taxis weaving, pedestrians rushing, ambition buzzing in every direction. But inside that office, time slowed. What does my father have to do with this? I asked carefully. Mr. Sterling walked back to his desk. 25 years ago, your father and I started a construction firm together. I blinked. Dad had always said he built his career alone. From nothing. He never mentioned a partner, I said. A faint smile. I'm not surprised. He slid a thin folder across the desk. Inside were old documents. Contracts. Photos of 2 younger men in hard hats standing in front of a half-built skyscraper. One of them was unmistakably my father, stronger, happier, eyes full of ambition. The other was Sterling. We were equal partners, Sterling said. Until one project changed everything. My pulse raced. What happened? There was an investment opportunity. High risk. High reward. I wanted to expand. Your father thought it was reckless. He paused. He pulled out last minute. And I went ahead without him. The next words landed like thunder. That investment became Sterling and Rowe. My throat went dry. So my dad walked away before you became this? Yes. And now? He leaned forward. Now I believe talent runs in families. Your academic record is exceptional. Your strategic analysis paper on urban redevelopment? Brilliant. He had read my thesis? I don't understand, I said slowly. Why me? Because, he replied calmly, your father once accused me of betraying him. My stomach twisted. He said I chased profit over loyalty. That I'd regret it. Sterling's gaze sharpened. I didn't regret it. But I never forgot it. The air between us felt charged. Are you trying to use me to prove something to him? I asked. His expression didn't change. I'm offering you an opportunity. 6-month executive track. Direct mentorship under me. Executive track? That wasn't entry level. That was elite. What's the catch? He smiled faintly. No catch. Just expectations. And my father? He'll find out eventually. Something about that answer unsettled me. But another voice inside whispered, "This is your chance." "I accept," I said. His smile widened slightly. "Good. You start Monday." When I got home that evening, Dad was sitting at the kitchen table reviewing bills. Daniel was out with friends, celebrating before leaving for college. "I got the job," I said. He didn't look up immediately. At Sterling and Rowe. Executive track. That made him look up. "Sterling," he repeated, jaw tightening slightly. "As in Marcus Sterling?" So he knew. "Yes." Silence stretched. "I'll be working directly under him." Dad leaned back slowly. "You shouldn't take that job." My chest tightened. "Why not?" "He's not a good man." "You were partners." His eyes flashed. "You don't know the whole story." "Then tell me." He stood abruptly. "Some doors are better left closed, Anna." I crossed my arms. "Funny. You didn't show up to open mine on graduation day." The words hung heavy. He exhaled sharply. "Don't start." "I'm not starting anything. I'm just tired of being secondary." "That's not fair." "Isn't it?" He didn't answer. Instead, he grabbed his jacket and walked out. Again, Monday arrived with summer humidity pressing down on the city. I wore a tailored gray suit and took the subway into Manhattan, watching my reflection in the window. This is your life now. Sterling didn't ease me in. Board meetings. Financial modeling. Strategy sessions with executives twice my age. Some resented me immediately. One VP whispered, "CEO's pet project." I ignored it. I worked 12-hour days. Took notes no one else noticed. Offered insights carefully. And slowly, Sterling began testing me. One afternoon, he handed me a confidential file. "Urban redevelopment project in Brooklyn," he said. "Multi-million-dollar contract. I want your recommendation." I skimmed the proposal. Then I saw the company bidding for subcontracting. Martinez Construction. My father's company. My heart pounded. "You knew," I said quietly. Sterling watched me closely. "Of course. This is a conflict of interest." "Life is full of conflicts." I swallowed. "Why involve me?" "Because," he said calmly, "this contract could triple your father's business. Or destroy it." "What's the risk?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. "There are zoning complications," he said finally. "Legal gray areas." Gray areas. Meaning if something went wrong, the subcontractor would take the fall. "My father." "You want me to approve this," I said slowly. "I want you to analyze it objectively. And if I say no, then you say no." But something told me it wasn't that simple. That night, I drove past Daniel's new BMW parked outside our apartment. It gleamed under the streetlight. Dad was inside, watching baseball. "I saw your company bid on a Brooklyn redevelopment project," I said carefully. He froze. "How do you know that?" "I work at Sterling and Rowe." His jaw tightened. "You shouldn't be involved in that." "Is it risky?" He hesitated. "All projects are risky." "That's not an answer." He stood up. "Sterling plays games, Anna. He pushes liability onto smaller firms." My stomach sank. "So why bid?" "Because if we land it, we expand. We finally move out of Queens. Bigger contracts. Stability. And if something goes wrong," he looked at me steadily. "I can handle it." But I saw something I hadn't seen before. Fear. The next morning, I presented my analysis to Sterling. "The zoning inconsistencies create exposure," I said evenly. "If challenged legally, the subcontractor absorbs primary liability." "And your recommendation?" he asked. I met his eyes. "Restructure the contract. Shared risk." A flicker of surprise crossed his face. "That reduces our margin." "It also reduces ethical exposure," I replied. Silence. Then he leaned back slowly. "You're not as predictable as I thought." "That's a good thing." He smiled faintly. "We'll adjust the terms." Relief washed through me. Until he added, "But understand this, Anna. In this industry, loyalty is leverage." That night, I received an email. Subject line, "Revised contract, urgent signature required." Attached was the updated agreement. I opened it. My breath caught. The liability clause hadn't changed. Sterling had lied. And at the bottom, awaiting executive approval. My name. The cursor blinked beside my digital signature line like it was daring me. Outside my apartment window, Queens pulsed with Friday night noise. Music from passing cars, laughter from the bodega, the distant rumble of the 7 trains sliding across elevated tracks. Normal life. Ordinary life. But on my laptop screen sat a decision that could destroy my father. I reread the liability clause. Clear as day. In the event of zoning disputes or legal action, Martinez Construction assumes full responsibility for penalties, delays, and damages. Shared risk? Not even close. Sterling hadn't adjusted anything. He had simply moved a few sentences around to make it look revised. And he expected me not to notice. Or worse, he expected me to sign anyway. My phone buzzed. Daniel. Yo, superstar consultant, he said when I answered. Dad's celebrating. He thinks the Brooklyn contract's basically locked. My stomach tightened. Has he signed anything? Not yet. He said he's waiting on final paperwork from Sterling's office. Daniel paused. Why? No reason, I said quickly. After we hung up, I stared at the ceiling. If I signed, the deal would move forward. Dad would be thrilled. His company would grow. And if the zoning issue exploded, he'd take the fall. If I refused to sign, the contract would stall. Sterling would know I defied him. And I was still on probation. I thought about graduation day. The empty seat. The BMW. Business degrees are common. A dark voice inside whispered, let him learn what neglect feels like. But another voice, quieter, stronger, said, that's not who you are. I closed the laptop without signing. Monday morning, Manhattan was drenched in summer heat. The air smelled like hot asphalt and roasted nuts from street carts. I walked into Sterling and Row with a calm expression I didn't feel. Rebecca met me near the elevators. Mr. Sterling wants to see you. Immediately. Of course he did. His office felt colder than usual. You didn't sign, he said without turning from the window. I couldn't. He faced me slowly. Couldn't? Or wouldn't? The liability terms are unchanged. A flicker of irritation crossed his face. They're industry standard. They're predatory. Silence. You're emotionally compromised, he said evenly. I'm ethically consistent. He studied me like I was a chess piece he hadn't positioned correctly. You think your father is innocent? He asked. I think he deserves transparency. Sterling walked back to his desk and opened a drawer. He pulled out another folder. Your father didn't just walk away from our partnership, he said calmly. He sabotaged it. My heart skipped. What? He slid a document toward me. An old email chain. Dated 25 years ago. Subject, structural safety concerns. The sender, Carlos Martinez. My father. In the message, Dad had warned Sterling about using lower-cost materials on a major project. Claimed it could compromise safety. Sterling's reply was short. Within acceptable limits. There were follow-up emails. Heated. Accusatory. And then, one final message from my father to the city inspection board. A whistleblower complaint. My breath caught. You reported him? I whispered. He reported me, Sterling corrected coldly. The investigation cost us investors. Nearly bankrupted us. But you recovered. Yes. His eyes hardened. After rebuilding from ashes. I felt dizzy. Why didn't you tell anyone? I asked. He gave a humorless laugh. Because history is written by survivors. So this is revenge? This, he said sharply, is business. The room felt suffocating. You're using me, I said quietly. I'm testing you. For what? For how far you're willing to rise. I met his gaze steadily. Not by stepping on my father. For the first time, real anger flashed in his eyes. Be careful, Anna, he warned. Idealism doesn't survive in this city. That evening, I confronted Dad. The apartment smelled like coffee and sawdust. He'd brought paperwork home again. Did you file a complaint against Sterling 25 years ago? I asked. His body went still. Who told you that? So it's true. He rubbed his face. It was complicated. Did you sabotage the company? I tried to stop him from cutting corners, he snapped. Those materials weren't safe. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want you dragged into old wars. I laughed bitterly. Too late. He stood. What is he doing? He's pushing a contract onto your company with full liability for zoning violations. Dad's expression shifted from anger to alarm. What? He's setting you up. Silence filled the room. I knew he held grudges, Dad muttered. But this, you can pull out, I said quickly. Don't sign. He looked at me carefully. If I pull out now, we lose credibility. Future contracts vanish. So you'd rather risk bankruptcy? I'd rather fight than run. There it was again, that stubborn pride. Dad, I said softly, he's testing me. Through you. His eyes softened slightly. Anna. I never meant for you to feel second place. That's not what it felt like. He hesitated. Daniel needed confidence. You never did. The words hit differently this time. You thought I didn't need you? I whispered. I thought you were strong enough without me. Tears burned my eyes. I didn't want to be strong alone. He looked like he wanted to say something more. But instead, he asked quietly, "What are you going to do?" I didn't have an answer. The next day at work, tension wrapped around me like static. Sterling called an executive meeting about the Brooklyn project. Final approval pending, he said smoothly. Anna will oversee compliance. Oversee compliance? That meant if something went wrong, my name would be attached. After the meeting, Rebecca approached me cautiously. You should know, she whispered. City inspectors are already reviewing the zoning. Someone tipped them off. My blood ran cold. Who? She shook her head. No idea. But I had one. Sterling. If inspectors flagged issues after Martinez Construction signed, the blame would land squarely on Dad. And indirectly on me. I walked back to my desk, hands trembling. An internal notification popped up on my screen. Confidential memo, do not distribute. Curiosity overpowered caution. I opened it. It was a risk assessment summary for the Brooklyn project. Worst case scenario. Projected losses shifted entirely to subcontractor. Sterling and Rowe shielded from financial exposure. At the bottom was a handwritten note scanned into the file. Ensure Martinez bears burden. Clean separation. Initials MS. Proof. Cold, calculated proof. I stared at the screen. This wasn't business. This was vengeance. My phone buzzed again. Dad. We just received the final contract, he said. Signing tomorrow morning. Tomorrow. Less than 24 hours. Don't, I said urgently. I have to. No, you don't understand. There's an inspection coming. Silence. How do you know that? I just do. He exhaled slowly. If I back out now, Sterling wins. He wins if you sign. Another pause. Then he said something that chilled me. What if I already did? The line went dead. The subway ride from Manhattan to Queens felt endless. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead. A street performer's saxophone echoed through the car, melancholic and raw. My reflection in the dark window looked like someone else. Someone older, sharper, tired. What if I already did? Dad's words replayed over and over. By the time I reached our apartment, my heartbeat was a drum in my ears. The front door was unlocked. Inside, papers were spread across the kitchen table. Contracts, blueprints, financial statements. Dad stood by the sink, staring out the window. You signed, I said quietly. He didn't turn around. This morning. My knees nearly gave out. Dad, I negotiated a few clauses, he interrupted. I'm not reckless. Did you remove the liability section? Silence. That's standard language, he said finally. I closed my eyes. You walked straight into his trap. He spun around. Enough with this trap narrative. I built this company from nothing. I know how to read a contract. You're underestimating him. And you're underestimating me. We stood there, years of unspoken frustration hanging between us. You think I don't see it? He said suddenly. The way he looks at you. This is personal for him. Yes, I shot back. Because you reported him. I protected workers. And now he's trying to prove you wrong by destroying you. The words hit hard. Dad's shoulders sagged slightly. Just slightly. Before either of us could say more, there was a knock at the door. Two men in suits stood outside. Carlos Martinez, one asked. Dad stiffened. Yes. We're here regarding the Brooklyn redevelopment site. There's been a zoning compliance inquiry. Already. They stepped inside, flashing official city identification. My stomach twisted. Sterling moved fast. We need access to your project documentation, the second man said. Dad glanced at me, just for a second. And in that look I saw it. Doubt. The inspection moved quickly. By evening, rumors were already circulating in industry circles. Rebecca texted me. Hearing Brooklyn site flagged for violations. You okay? No. I wasn't okay. The next morning, headlines on local business blogs read, Zoning irregularities surface in major Brooklyn project. They didn't name Martinez Construction yet, but it was only a matter of time. At the office, the atmosphere was electric. Executives whispered in corners. Phones rang nonstop. Sterling called an emergency meeting. As you've all seen, he began smoothly, the subcontractor for Brooklyn has encountered regulatory complications. Subcontractor. Not partner. Not collaborator. Just subcontractor. Our exposure is minimal, he continued. We followed all compliance protocols. I felt every pair of eyes subtly shift toward me. After the meeting, I marched into his office without knocking. You tipped them off, I said. He didn't deny it. I ensured due diligence, he replied coolly. You set him up. He signed willingly. You manipulated the risk structure. And he accepted it, Sterling snapped. Your father made a choice. Rage burned through me. You're destroying a small business to settle a decades-old grudge. I'm correcting history, he said sharply. By ruining families? His jaw tightened. Careful. No, I said, voice steady now. You be careful. For a split second, something shifted in his expression. Not fear. Curiosity. You have proof, he asked softly. I held his gaze. Maybe. Silence. You leak anything, he said, voice low and dangerous, and you'll be blacklisted from every major firm in this city. There it was. The real test. Loyalty or integrity. Career or conscience. He leaned back in his chair. Decide who you are, Anna. That night, Daniel came home from Colombia unexpectedly. I saw the news, he said, dropping his bag. Is Dad going to be okay? I don't know. Dad sat at the table, unusually quiet. They're freezing project payments pending review, he said. Cash flow's tight. How tight? Daniel asked. Dad didn't answer. I knew what that meant. Very tight. I went to my room and opened my laptop. The confidential memo. The handwritten note. The liability clause. If I leaked it to a journalist, it would expose Sterling's intent. But it would also expose me. Internal documents traced back easily. I hesitated. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. Hello. A woman's voice. Calm. Professional. This is Laura Chen from the City Compliance Office. I believe you may have information relevant to the Brooklyn case. My pulse spiked. How did you get my number? Anonymous source suggested you value ethical practice. Anonymous source. Who? If you're willing to speak off record, she continued, we can ensure whistleblower protection. Whistleblower. The word echoed. Just like my father had once been. History repeating itself. I looked at the wall where my graduation tassel hung. Ignored. Forgotten. And I realized something. This was never about a car. Or a ceremony. It was about being seen. About standing for something. I walked back into the living room. Dad, I said quietly, if this gets worse, will you fight? He looked at me steadily. Always. Even if it means going against Sterling publicly? Yes. I nodded slowly. Then I picked up my phone and dialed Laura Chen back. I'm ready to talk, I said. I didn't see the black SUV parked across the street, or the man inside it, watching our building, reporting back to someone. New York has a way of exposing truth under bright lights. The morning I met Laura Chen, the sky over Manhattan was clear, almost deceptively peaceful. Bryant Park was full of early joggers and suited professionals balancing coffee cups and ambition. But inside a quiet conference room at the City Compliance Office, the air felt heavy. Laura was sharp, observant mid-30s, the kind of woman who didn't waste words. You understand, she said calmly. Once this moves forward, there's no undoing it. I know, I replied. I handed her printed copies of the memo. The liability structure. The handwritten note. She studied everything carefully. This demonstrates intent to transfer risk knowingly, she said. If verified, it shifts the narrative entirely. Can you protect my father's company? We can't erase violations, she said honestly. But if Sterling and Rowe engineered the exposure, liability won't sit solely on Martinez Construction. That was all I needed. When I left the building, my phone vibrated. Sterling. I let it ring. Seconds later, a text. We need to talk. Now. His office felt different that afternoon. Less controlled. He didn't offer me a seat. You've been busy, he said coolly. I didn't respond. City Compliance contacted our legal department. There it was. You underestimated me, I said quietly. His eyes narrowed. You think you're protecting your father, but you've declared war. No, I corrected. You did. I just refused to be your weapon. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked disappointed. I saw potential in you, he said. You saw leverage. Silence stretched between us. You realize your career here is over, he added. I know. And if this investigation expands, industry doors may close. Then I'll build my own. Something unreadable flickered in his expression. You sound like him, he muttered. Good. The investigation moved fast once documentation surfaced. Internal emails were subpoenaed. Legal teams scrambled. Business media picked up the story. Headlines shifted. Questions arise over risk allocation in Brooklyn project. Was subcontractor unfairly targeted? For the first time, Martinez Construction wasn't portrayed as reckless. It was portrayed as potentially exploited. Dad sat at the kitchen table reading an article on his phone. They're saying Sterling may have influenced inspection timing, he said slowly. Daniel grinned. That's huge. Dad looked at me. You did this. We did this, I corrected. Weeks passed. Sterling and Rose stock dipped. Not catastrophic, but noticeable. Investors dislike ethical scandals. Eventually, a settlement was reached. Shared liability. Revised contracts. Public commitment to transparent compliance standards. Sterling wasn't destroyed. But he wasn't untouchable anymore. And Martinez Construction survived. Not unscarred, but standing. One evening, Dad asked me to take a walk. We strolled through our Queens neighborhood as sunset painted brick buildings gold. Kids played stickball in the street. Music drifted from open windows. I was wrong, he said quietly. About what? Thinking you didn't need me. Emotion caught in my throat. I always needed you, I admitted. He nodded slowly. When your mom died, I focused on surviving, on building something stable. I know. I thought Daniel needed confidence. I thought you already had it. I had ambition, I said. Not armor. He stopped walking. I'm proud of you, he said firmly. Not for fighting Sterling. Not for the job. For choosing integrity. The words I had waited years to hear. Late, but real. Daniel left his BMW parked that night and ordered pizza for all of us instead. New rule, he announced dramatically. We celebrate everyone's milestones equally. I laughed. Weeks later, I received an email. From Sterling. Short. Direct. You were right about shared risk. The industry needs more of that. If you ever decide to return, not as leverage but as leader, my door is open. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I closed it. Because I had already accepted another offer. A smaller consulting firm. Ethics-first development projects. Lower salary. Higher alignment. On my first day there, standing in a modest office overlooking the East River, I felt something I hadn't felt at graduation. Seen. Not because of a ceremony. Not because of a car. But because I chose who I was going to be. 6 months later, Martinez Construction secured a new contract. This time with transparent city oversight and fair terms. Dad insisted on putting my name on the advisory board. Full circle, Daniel joked. One Sunday afternoon, Dad handed me a small wrapped box. Inside was a key. Not to a BMW. To a modest, pre-owned Honda Civic. I know it's not flashy, he said, almost shy. But it's yours. No conditions. Tears filled my eyes. I don't need a car to know you care, I said. I know, he replied. This one's just a bonus. We stood there, Queens skyline behind us, city noise humming. The same New York. Different story. Because sometimes betrayal doesn't break you. It reveals you. And the girl whose graduation seat was empty? She learned that being overlooked isn't the end. It's the beginning of becoming undeniable.